Correct. That one goes from 50 feet wide to a 20-foot wide pedestrian paseo. So in essence, on the one where I showed the differences in the square footages, 9th Street was actually a reduction in the connection point because that one is actually being converted to a pedestrian paseo.
I do, this is not my immediate neighborhood, but I go through some of the pain because of the glories that we have in our community, you know, whether it's something at the Performing Arts Center, something at the AAA Arena, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're coming off of 95, it's backed up forever. So, you know, the concerns about how we phase this project, yes, because we talk about phases and how we move forward, are critical. So when we now talk about closures, of course, everybody, at least I know, I feel a little sense of concern.
Well, I can tell you in the original 2008 SD 16.3 master plan, that was ultimately, it was kind of like, it was adopted in 11,000 right before Miami 21 came to be. It contemplated the 7th Street closure, and it contemplated additional pedestrian accesses and plazas and so forth. The project overall is also going to be dedicating 14,000 square feet and 20,000 square feet of public plazas as part of its site plan. So part of this has been previously master planned. However, now, because we're going through the platting process to actually effectuate some of the master plan concepts, everything's coming back, but some of this was contemplated previously.
So now we go to platting, and then how do we as a community know what your phases are and how the impacts are? Because you mentioned you're meeting with the Heat, you're meeting with 600 and 700 Biscayne, and those are corporations.
Correct.
Those aren't the folks that are living downtown or in Museum 10 Museum or north or south of your project, because you do have residents in the core of downtown that are also affected by what transpires in this area. So what is the thinking going forward as how do you reach out to the community once you go to your platting and move on?
Our special district requires that any new building be approved by special permit. So every time a new building comes to be, notice will be given out to abutting owners and all the area associations. So that is how every building that gets constructed will actually be notified. In essence, I can tell you.
Ooh. Ooh, batteries. What happened? I don't know. Here, come here, come here. Oh.
We can tell you what is the driving force currently in our master plan, and that is that the client was able to solidify Macy's and Bloomingdale's in order to build the retail mall. So that is definitely what's driving our train right now, is that we have 2 large retailers coming to downtown Miami, and as such, that is our phase 1. The other additional phases will come as we partner up with different developers in order to accommodate the residential development. But right now, the retail for sure is the phase 1.
To the city as to notice. Currently, there's a certain process for notification. What happens if I, as a neighbor, want to have personal notification? Is there a place, do I contact the net office and have them contact me?
Well, the notice is by the code. It's notice for property owners within 500-foot radius. If you're not in the radius, then you don't receive the notice.
So each condo owner receives a notice, not the association?
Each condo association.
That's a big difference.
It used to be each resident, but that was changed, I believe, with Miami 21. It's just the one representative of the condominium association.
I hope that as we continue our deliberation this evening, we would ask the applicant to go back to the old-fashioned way, specifically to this project.
Oh, and this is I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I have a question for staff. Whenever, like in this specific case, there's dedications of land here from the alley. Even if it gets rededicated back to the city, can they use the additional I guess, space that they're achieving to add floor space to the project itself before it's built, or how exactly does that work?
I'm happy to respond to that, and with your permission, I'd also like to address a couple of other issues that have been brought up. The answer is yes, that would be the case. The land, the right-of-way when vacated reverts to its primary state of private property, and that can be folded into calculations for FLR, right? However, I'd like to emphasize also that that is not the driving force here, as the original set of regulations that were approved some time ago, upwards of about 5-6 years ago, contemplated already in the master planning effort some street closures. And so, although the answer is yes, and I want to be unequivocal about that, that will revert to private property status, that is not really the reason why this is being done. Really, the effort is to master plan the area so that it functions or performs in a better fashion. I'd like to use it as a brief segue to zoom out a moment and explain how this particular step being taken today is a part of a larger plan that I think will result ultimately in addressing or being able to address some of the concerns that have been expressed here today. So I'd like to begin again very quickly by pointing out that Appendix D, the Miami World Center Appendix in Miami 21, which was passed as part of the previous ordinance, already contemplated a significant redesign of the street layout in the area. And there were some closures included then, and those are already enshrined, so to speak, in the zoning ordinance. What is before you today is the first step towards re-engineering, redesigning, remaster planning that whole area, and we've been engaged in this for some time now, but that is step one of many steps to come, and ultimately the intent is to actually make significant revisions to the appendix itself, and so the master plan as a whole will change. Not dramatically, but certainly there are substantial refinements that will be made to it. It is, in my opinion, properly the development agreement that would begin to give rise to our ability to meet with the neighbors and to meet with the property owners and to meet with any parties affected to be able to sort these issues out. Make no mistake about it, and I think everyone understands this, when there is significant redevelopment along the lines of what is being proposed here today, there will be disruptions. We're experiencing them on a daily basis, and that, it doesn't make any sense to pretend otherwise. That said, we've had reasonable success in organizing that so that the disruption is minimal and so that certain special interest in the area, so particular property owners that are going to be unduly affected by some of the stages of the redevelopment and the construction, can be well provided for. I think a good example to cite is the Brickell City Center process, which was originally fairly chaotic but has since turned into a series of monthly, if not bi-monthly meetings with affected stakeholders, and MOTs have ensued that provide for the ability of those people who are, yes, somewhat disrupted, at least to function properly. This will be the same case here. We will get to that step prior to final approval by the City Commission, but that is more closely related to the development agreement that is presently being revised and redrafted, and our commitment to you as staff is that we will reach out to any affected stakeholders, and if they'd like to leave with us their names and contact information, we'll make it a point to fold them in and to attend to any concerns they may have. Thank you.
Ms. Torrance? My question is, if during the time that you're having these discussions about the traffic impact and the closing streets, the announcement that the 395 exit is going to be now on Miami Avenue, have you looked at the impact of that when you're closing these streets? Because there's so much gridlock that goes on with any kind of activity in that area. And the project is great. I mean, I think this is a wonderful project for that space. But that's going to put a lot of traffic right where you've closed two streets.
If I'm going to let our traffic engineer respond to that question much better than I can.
Thank you, Iris.
Sure. John McWilliams, Kimley Horner Associates, offices at 1221 Brickell. 395, and I don't know, I think there's some misinformation, at least from some of the public that mentioned it. Yeah, the plan right now that DOT has in place is that that the ramps will land at North Miami Avenue, but the roads will be basically a series of frontage roads along 395 that land North Miami Avenue and then continue all the way to Biscayne Boulevard. So the improvements will actually, 395 will actually enhance the connectivity to the grid, because now we're not removing any streets that connect to the exit ramps and on-ramps. we're actually adding one. So folks, again, affected on North Miami Avenue now will be able to really just avoid the area, especially during construction. If 395 is built before then, they could just go down through North Miami Avenue. So 395 actually is going to improve the circulation in the area.
Dr. Martin?
Yes, I still have some concerns about Ninth. And the answer that you gave to me and what you said to her is inconsistent. First of all, I mentioned that there has been a lot of public investment on the 9th Street corridor for the purpose of connecting Overtown, perhaps the most bicycle-dependent community in our immediate environs. And it's meant to connect the people of Overtown to the bay. And it is designed, the part that's already open from the Lyric Theater all the way down to the other side of the railroad. There's a gap in between that I mentioned, but it's a real challenge to do that. But once, to achieve the goal of getting to the bay, and if we're going to continue on 9th Street, as has been previously invested in by this, when they were combined, the Southeast Overtown Park West, CRA, the considerable investment to take people 2 blocks from the bay and then not to continue is, when you mentioned that it was a continuation of the Greenway plan, I was content with that. But then when you told her that it was not including bicycles, pedestrians only, then that means that bicyclists do not have that continuous segment that takes them all the way from the Miami River, where I live, through Overtown, directly to Biscayne Bay.
That is accurate. Meaning on 9th Street here,
Yes.
on this connection here, there will be
Right.
only pedestrian, no bicycle access will be allowed through this particular piece here.
And that's not consistent with the Greenway plan.
In essence, the green access by bicycle can be done through 10th Street, can be done through 8th Street, potentially, it depending on the section that's ultimately approved here by the City Public Works Department, and by the 7th Street Promenade, and by 6th Street down here. So in essence, the 9th Street pedestrian paseo is going to be, frontage with retail and so forth, but it won't have bicycle access through it.
Well, then it's unsatisfactory, because if we've invested all this public money over the years, and it's already there in some segments on both sides of the railroad, taking people 2 blocks from your district, and now they can't get to on their bicycles, or any bicyclist, not just Overtown residents, but it's anybody who wants to get access and use their bicycles in the downtown area and get to the museums, all of the centers, and the promenade on Biscayne Bay.
Mm-hmm.
They have to get through here some way. So there has to be a bicycle plan as part of this. Even if it has to jog from 9th Street to somewhere else, there has to be a bicycle component to get through here on a bicycle.
Right. We can commit to doing a bicycle path on 10th Street, because I think that is a street that actually has the connectivity across. What happens with 9th Street is it dead ends 2 blocks over with regards to the tracks. So on 10th Street, we can and we plan to anticipate bicycle paths being able to connect all the way on Biscayne. However, 9th Street does not accommodate the bicycles. That's really predominantly pedestrian.
You'll have to figure out some way to connect to the 9th Street pedestrian mall, and a pedestrian bicycle pathway that has already been invested. It just has to be some continuity in order to achieve the goal of allowing residents to get to the water.
Right, and we can continue to look at that, and we'll go back and look at that bicycle component to see all the connectivity and the circulation in the project.
Any other questions?
Mr. Gibson, you can go
I
first.
just wanted to follow up with that line of questioning. So what you're saying is that there is a bike path on the west side of the tracks, and then there's a dead end, and then the bike path starts again on, I'm talking about 9th Street. Is that what you're telling us?
The 9th Street here
Right.
Here are the tracks and so forth where they come. Right now, there's no access on this side for pedestrian or vehicular or bicycle unless you just travel across the tracks. So what happens here right now, here is a dead end. So someone coming from across would have to come up to 8th Street or would have to come to 10th Street to be able to go across. And they would go across 10th Street and they would go across 8th Street. That's why we feel that these are the path that most people would take. We understand Mr. Martin's component because the CRA did have a master plan for the 9th Street Mall, which has evolved throughout the years. And what our project did was to accommodate the 9th Street Mall component, but really principally make it more pedestrian as opposed to bicycle, because we figured 10th Street would be really the path that people would take to get to downtown.
And if I could pick up on Iris's point, there's something very, very important going back to what Dr. Martin said. Hello? One of the challenges, if you will, in enhancing pedestrian activity, enhancing pedestrian circulation as well as bicycle traffic has been and I'm sorry for turning my back to you, has been the presence of the NAP building, the Network Access Point of the Americas. And here you have 9th Street, and it's, coming here, and we're using this area right here, and it got mentioned, I think I may have mentioned it briefly, as did Iris, but it's particularly important to us, because I know it's very important to city staff, that we highlight this particular area here. And it may move a few feet here and there, but right here we have a 14,000 square foot plaza that we will maintain, that will be used and encouraged to be used by any member of the public. There may be benches, there may, for recreation. So our goal in doing this was to try and draw people up a little bit north of 9th Street to encourage them to go around on 10th Street because of our 20-foot pedestrian paseo. Similarly, on the south side of the NAP, which is 8th Street, vehicle traffic will be remain, as will pedestrian traffic. We have what is no less than 20,000 square feet that will also be used, and the thinking here is whether it's pedestrians or bicyclers or, like me and my wife, people pushing strollers, whomever, to draw them south into the pedestrian promenade on 7th and again towards the east. So the use of these two civic spaces, while maybe not 100% getting or matching with what you had mentioned, Dr. Martin, we feel will draw people up north and enhance that connectivity, as well as draw them south, and at the same time create what we think is the best pleasing environment on this side of Northeast First Avenue, given that we're limited with the presence of the NAP building.
And what is the plan for, what is that, I can't, oh, my eyes are horrible. What is, Northeast First Street, Northeast First Avenue. What is the?
First Avenue remains as, we're going to improve First Avenue with regards to our redevelopment, but First Avenue stays as it is. In essence, we'll be enhancing it, new landscaping and all, and it's part of our redevelopment. We'll be improving it, but it stays the same. The avenues aren't being touched.
A couple things bother me. First of all, let me say I love the project. You have Bloomingdale's and Macy's downtown, makes me very happy. It's right where I work. But what bothers me is that your clients seem to take the time to speak to corporate America, but didn't take the time to speak to the residents who live in there. And when I hear that, well, condominium association, the president got notice, I don't think any phone calls were made like the phone calls were made to the people from the Heat and the other buildings. So there wasn't really a meaningful dialogue. There also wasn't a meaningful dialogue with people who are just renters. And that's kind of insulting to the people who've given their blood, sweat, and tears to make a business go and paid their rental payments to an entity that way before they had a dream this was ever going to be. So it's taking them for granted, and I don't think that's very nice. So my question then is, which my vote will be dependent upon, it's clear that the residents of that community are going to suffer every time there's Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, or there's a Heat game, when the construction is simultaneous. Mm-hmm. Where are you going to put those fans and those attendees? Where are they going to park their cars?
We are going to have to do a temporary parking plan. In essence, as part of the phasing of the project, and this is something that the city requires with site plans, is you have to show not only where your construction workers park, wherever all the parking goes that is accommodating the construction, you also have to accommodate, in essence, the parking in the surrounding areas. So what happens is those special events that occur will have to come up with a alternative parking plan, which we will be an intricate part of because we want their parking to come back to our building. In essence, the reason why we're building all this additional parking is to accommodate these uses. In essence, we will work closely with them to come up with a shuttle service where we can use other lots to be able to, for the special events. And that is a parking plan that will be required in connection with not only the construction, but the phasing of the development.
What about the homeowners? What about the people getting in and out of their buildings? How are we going to accommodate them?
Well, I think that's one of the things that the planning director alluded to, that we can have some community meetings where we accommodate and make sure that when there's a street closure, everybody's notified, those sorts of things, to make sure that as each phase goes and as each piece goes, because we would love to do it all at the same time, but unfortunately it's not going to happen that way, we'll be able to accommodate all the immediate concerns of those around us that are mostly impacted from the construction.
But the problem for the staff is convincing the members of this community that you have the ability to do so effectively, because I think there's some justifiable skepticism.
I think they gave a great example with City Center. I mean, City Center is a big project, and I think it's working quite well with Mary Brickell Village, which in essence, you have a great commercial hub right next door to all this construction, and it's still just as vibrant. You have a hard time finding the parking, but it's still, they coexist. So in essence, I think that maybe they had its quirks.
I have no doubt it can be done, but it's going to take some convincing by the city to reassure the residents, and that I hope.
Understood.
I'm sure.
Well, my next question is a follow-up to what Mr. Young was talking about, and basically it goes into how will you accomplish the communication with the neighbors once you go through the phases? Because clearly the city's not going to be helping you on that, and you've shown that you haven't communicated with the neighbors. So the question is, what would you proffer us tonight that will allow us to feel comfortable on your communication with the neighbors?
That's a very good question. Before I answer that, we have been, our clients, have been stakeholders in this area for in excess of 10 years. We lease space for free to several artists and have strong ties in the community. I think it's an unfair characterization, with all due respect to the board, to say that we have not reached out to our tenants. One of the tenants that spoke this evening, again, while not germane to the application before us, is in litigation with us right now. So what the motives are to come up and discuss this particular item, I'm not sure. But all that being said, what we want is to be successful in the community. We want our project to be successful. We want traffic and vehicle circulation to be better than it is now. We want to integrate multimodal transportation consistent with our overall master plan, as well as Miami 21. And in order to do that, we need to communicate with our neighbors during construction. And trust me, if we could build this building overnight and everybody could not be affected, or these buildings, trust me, my clients would love it. We would all love it. It would be a transformation of the urban fabric overnight. But there's going to be a somewhat growing pains, if you will, because whatever plan we put before whatever neighbors it is, we're going to have to figure it out a little bit along the way. And we can coordinate through the net office. We can, once we have our plans finalized, particularly with phasing and a construction schedule, we clearly are happy to communicate that through the planning department. And we will also hold a charrette before vertical construction begins to inform our residents. We'll use the same notice procedures from this evening. We'll have more than one charrette. I can't commit to 10, but I know our success is the
You have a what?
success.
A charrette?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a planning meeting.
A planning meeting. Yes.
Thank you. I thought that was a new
Yeah.
late step or
And we will also, as part of our effort to continue, bridging and creating new lines of communication. We'll also advise the DDA of our development schedule once it comes into final form.
All right, but you still haven't answered my question. I mean, it all sounded nice and beautiful, but you communicate it with your tenants. Your tenants might be part of the neighborhood, but you haven't communicated with the neighborhood. And you said we'll communicate through Net Office. You know, Net Office has things to do. They're not going to be worried about communicating with the neighborhoods. So how will you communicate with the neighbors, and what procedures will you take? Will you notify them? Will you expend monies trying to get the word out? Not through the planning office, not through the city, not through the net. You, as a major developer in this area that needs to have this neighborhood up to date of this major project. And how are they going to be inconvenienced by this whole process?
But before the planning director, I did say, sir, that we would be happy to notify any meeting, any charrette, any letter we send to the DDA.
How will you do that?
Just as we've noticed.
How will you do that?
I'm trying to answer. Just as we've noticed tonight's hearing under the city code.
Which wasn't too great. I mean, I don't think it was. That's a good example.
One thing here that, I just keep hearing, I mean, one of the major issues obviously is that of notification. I mean, I think this could potentially be a very good project. I want to put that on the record. But maybe as a compromise, I don't know if this is something you guys would be willing to do as well. Instead of not necessarily going through certified mail return receipt to every single unit owner, but at least maybe a regular mail out to maybe anybody that's within the 500 feet, just like as per, in addition as to per code, but, getting an association to have one letter for 400 people or 200 people, maybe just a regular mail out to them, each individual unit owner. Maybe that might at least increase some of the awareness. That's just an idea. I don't know if that's
a great idea.
That
great
might
idea.
be, I don't know if
I'd like to say briefly, with your permission, Madam Chair, that we do in the Planning and Zoning Department see our role as being the clearinghouse for information for these projects, and that I accept any level of skepticism. It ultimately falls upon us to prove to the community that we can do our job properly, and we accept that challenge. We are the recipient of the information regarding this project. The information we receive, of course, is public information that anyone and everyone is welcome to. And I think we also fulfill the role of coordinating any interaction with the stakeholders and members of the public who are affected. It's part and parcel of what we do. And I'd like to again, just offer you as examples what I think are successful interventions, not only in Brickell City Center, but more recently perhaps in the design district and work in progress over in Wynwood as well, where again, we simply reach out to anyone who makes themselves known to us. Now, we have the database that Mrs. Trujillo shared with you earlier. That's our point of departure. We simply don't have any information beyond that. We are happy to explore expanding that mailing list to each of the units, perhaps not to the level of individual tenants, but certainly one per unit or flyers to be distributed. We can certainly explore that in order to be more effective. But the most specific and perhaps most effective proposal I can make today is that to the extent that anyone is here and wants to put themselves on our mailing list, we will make certain that they receive any and all items of information pertaining to this project, and they would do well also to advise others through word of mouth perhaps that if they let us know who they are and what their interest is, we'll certainly communicate with them. That's a commitment that we're very willing to make.
Mr. Garcia, here's the challenge that now you've put yourself on the spot for the Miami World Center and all the other projects, especially the special area plans. And the special area plans are key because you get so much from Miami 21. And the onus, you just said, is on you to make sure that these areas are properly developed. And they do impact large areas and large neighborhoods. And when we talk about downtown, I just heard Mr. Young say, I'm excited that Macy's is coming to downtown. Well, guess what? Macy's is already in downtown, core downtown. And I'm making a good point because that, Mr. Young's point, is exactly the one that I'm making. Downtown core is downtown core. But if you look at downtown today, it goes from Mary Brickell Village all the way, and you can now even include Midtown. It's just one long path. The DDA covers most of that. I believe they go up to 21st Street, and so does the CRA, but it's one huge continuous area that we are fortunate to have in our community, to have entertainment, to have these places to go to, whether it's a heat game, a play, a ballet, a museum. Because in the middle of this, you know, we keep not talking about 11th Street, just north of here, but 11th Street is now the grand entrance, grand entrance to Museum Park. So all this is linked, and it is key, and there are a lot of players. You don't want to talk to every resident? You know, when we did Miami 21, we knew that not every resident was going to be contacted. It is exactly as has been stated on the record. It only goes to the net office. The net office only notifies those associations that have identified themselves. It's not like I go to Museum 10 Tower and say, oh, by the way, I'm from the city of Miami and I'd like to welcome you to our database. I don't think we do that. They have to identify themselves to us so that we can notify them, which is what you also said a second ago. So when we do these special area plans, you talked earlier about the development agreement. Does that come in front of us?
It does, and eventually to the city commission as well, yes. It's an
So
ordinance.
that'll happen before any of the permits are granted. So that whoever's here in the future, we have to know when we can act. But, sir, we want to make sure that you as the applicant are aware of the concerns that are brought up in front of you and that there are concerns.
If I could pick you up on that point, and in addition to what the planning director outlined, we will be doing a few things, and we will proffer to do a third. The first is that clearly we won't be able to start construction on any portions of the property where we have tenants without telling them first, because they may need to be relocated or what have you. So the communication with our tenants, whether, you know, tonight was, you know, great or tonight was not, clearly we can't start construction without telling our tenants, particularly if the construction is going to impact our tenants. That would probably cause a problem under our lease. Number two, we will agree to put an office. We'll come up with an appropriate location with staff where anyone from the neighborhood, and not a small office and not an office that's camouflaged in some fashion, but an office like, you know, these sales offices for condos that, you know, pop up a couple blocks or on the site, where we will have regular hours, and anyone from the neighborhood or anyone else will be able to come, find out information, particularly development schedule, when a particular street may or may not be impacted, things like that. Thirdly, and picking up, I think something that I heard earlier, prior to commencement of vertical construction on the first phase, which again is the retail, we will agree to provide notices not to associations, but to all abutting or connecting property owners, which should, although I don't have it in front of me, which should alleviate the concerns of the condominium association versus owner issue that I heard this evening.
How far would that radius be? When you say abutting, it could be 3 properties abutting you.
Abutting.
Abutting, so it could be 2 or 3.
Whatever's abutting.
Whatever's around you, which, yeah.
1 second.
Well, what significant amount, but be specific. I mean, I feel, you know, I feel I'm getting the runaround. You know, when you first stated the first point, the renters need to be notified. Of course your renters are going to be notified because they're going to have to move out. So, I mean, that's beyond the point. The second, we're going to put an office. Of course you're going to have an office. And the third, the abutting. So, I mean, I feel like I'm getting jerked around here.
Here, with regards to the abutting neighbors to our particular development, it's a significant amount of
So let's say
interest.
what, 300 feet, 400, 500? I mean, abutting is the person next to you.
But these buildings have 400 unit owners. I mean, these would be the most
Okay,
impacted.
so you're not talking
These are
about,
abutting.
when you say abutting, you're saying the,
Including across the street.
Including across the, oh yeah, abutting includes across, it's everything around us. In essence, those would be the people that would have the most concerns with regards to our particular project. And we're going to notify them and let them know prior to construction that we are starting construction, and we'll hold a meeting with them to let them know what our schedule is, what is proposed, and so forth.
that makes sense.
And these are 400, 500, I mean, these
Okay,
are...
that makes sense.
Thank you.
I have a traffic-related question. There's a comment from the city that asked the applicant to discuss the access connections and how they're being affected from Biscayne and I-95. And I don't think Ms. Torrens' question was answered. You mentioned the improvements to 395. 395 is to the north, but what is the impact to the roads that are east and west of this project, given that you're closing roads that run east and west?
Sure. I'll be happy to answer that. John McWilliams again with Kimley Horn. So as I mentioned before, from a vehicular standpoint, 7th Street gets closed for 2 blocks and 9th Street gets closed for a single block. To give you an idea of the volumes that are on 7th Street today, because we have a traffic study that's at the city right now under review, and we're working with staff on addressing our mitigation plan for these closures. 7th Street today, about 15% of its capacity is being used. There's about 150 vehicles on that street during the afternoon rush hour. It's very, very underutilized. Again, because it only goes for a few blocks and it dead ends at the arena. Similar situation with 9th. 9th is extremely underutilized. I think it's about 30% or so. So a lot of that traffic will divert to 8th and use 8th, since 8th is a major east-west corridor, goes all the way to 95. 8th has capacity, and we're increasing capacity. 8th right now it's a 2-lane road with parking. We're going to create a 3-lane road so that there'll be a center turn lane at each of the major intersections so that we can add capacity at those intersections. 9th Street, again, will be eliminated, and cars will have to divert for that block one way or the other. As a part of our proposed mitigation strategy, we're going to utilize the extra width that's on 10th that's not being used, and we're planning on 2-weighing 10th. That's what we're considering with the city. So the 10th, which currently is 1-way, would be 2-way, so you could get back to First Ave and head north to 395. So in terms of addressing, the impacts that closures obviously have, that's our immediate plan. As far as the development, the access to the project, what we've done is, because we have good intersections at 1st and 2nd and 9th, and we're eliminating one leg of it, that's where actually we're going to tie our garage entrances and exits to. So that's where the garage helixes would be to go up into the parking. So essentially, for instance, I know there's a lot of discussion of what happens with the heat traffic. Well, the biggest reason that this gets really congested is that if you're parking in a surface lot for the heat, well, there's 5 or 6 driveways on each block, so everybody's kind of going here and there. We're going to have one solid access point on 1st, one solid access point on 2nd to the garage for parking. And those decks will have a really long driveway length as you come in, so there won't be any of those delays of people paying right at the curb. You actually go up into the garage before you hit any gates. And what that does is it really allows, when people leave from the heat game, they can go right back the way they normally go on 1st. When they come in, they'll come right down on 2nd and come in. So we've really addressed that. And on top of that, we're also looking at another helix, kind of a relief valve helix, and an exit onto 10th, right in this area. So again, trying to give people different points of access for the site. And there are a few porte-cocheres and drop-offs I could get into, but again, the site plan's still conceptual at this time.
Okay.
So does that help answer your question?
No, yes, it does.
Okay.
And then for any bus lanes that are along Miami Avenue, will there be bus pullouts? I know right now sometimes they just stop on the street.
Well, yeah, and actually if you talk to Miami-Dade Transit, because I've dealt with this for projects all over the county, they actually don't want bus bays because unfortunately motorists don't follow the law and allow them back into the traffic stream. So if we were going to propose these bus bays, they would actually typically, my experience has been they're against it. They want to stay out in the lane. The thing is the bus bays would probably be in the parking lane. So the bus stops. So they'll probably be off to the side, but they probably won't be in a full 12-foot lane. A parking lane's 8 or 9 feet. But again, we'll have to work through all that. Plotting process is a county process as well. So in terms of dealing with all the county agencies through the plat, we have to do that too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any more discussion?
If not, I'd like to hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
With the
With
amendment
all the notification requirements that we talked
was
about.
stated on the record.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is approval, recommended approval to the City Commission with the modifications, suggestions that you mentioned on the record, correct?
Correct. The notice requirements.
The notice requirements. Okay.
And the parking requirements.
And parking requirements. Okay. Who left? Barnes. Okay. Ms. Leavano Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Garavaglia?
Yes.
Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Dr. Martin?
Yes, especially knowing that the people who live in the condominiums are forming an organization called the Downtown Neighborhood Association, which is to represent, we knew this was going to happen when you have thousands of new people moving into an area. They're eventually going to want to have a civic organization that represents them, and I think that would be much easier to meet the conditions that we're asking for public notification when they do set up their organization officially on April 3rd. Yes.
Mr. Milian?
Yes.
Mr. Pina?
Yes.
Ms. Torrens?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes, and Ms. Gutierrez, they did not renew Macy's lease where it currently is, so they have to leave Flagler Street. Just FYI.
And he wouldn't have.
And Ms. Tarbert?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Have a good night.
I already got 'em.
Madam Chair, while the next group is coming, is there any rhyme or reason of why we had 11 items, all of which are going to take a lot of time scheduled for today?
Excuse me, we have to get on with the items.
How do we schedule 11 items today, 12 items today, many of whom are controversial, all on one calendar and expect to be done at some reasonable time? How did that happen? This is the second time this has happened, and Madam Chair, I don't know, I'm speaking for myself, it's just not fair to do to us, but more importantly, it's not fair to do to the people out there who have to be here till midnight. It's just not right. And I don't know what we can do, but I think we need to do something. I think we put a cap on how many agenda items we have, and I think that common sense should dictate to the hearing boards that if they know that there's controversial items on there, they notify us, Madam Chair, and say this is going to take, this has the potential to take a long time. I think you may want to limit the agenda items to 2 or 3 or 4, not 12.
All right, let's start. Item number 3.
Item 3, File ID 14-00089AC, a resolution of the Miami Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board approving or denying the closing, vacating, abandoning, and discontinuing for public use through the alternate method an alley located between Southwest 26th Road and Southwest 27th Road from Southwest 1st Avenue to Southwest 2nd Avenue, Miami, Florida.
Leonard Helmers, City of Miami Public Works Department. The City of Miami Platinum Street Committee at its September 5, 2013 meeting reviewed the application to close and vacate the alley between Southwest 26th Road and Southwest 27th Road from Southwest 1st Avenue to Southwest 2nd Avenue. This was done in accordance with the procedures set forth in the City Code for the alternate closure method of a public alley. Based on the testimony presented at the Platinum Street Committee meeting, the Platinum Street Committee members voted to recommend 5 in favor and none in denial of the vacation and closure request, subject to a public utility easement being reserved in the footprint of the former alley.
Thank you. Is the applicant here?
The applicant for,
Okay.
can we skip it? Is the applicant for number 3 here? PZAB 3? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, what,
Is Sada Storger
side is,
or Mary?
Next door, I mean, the other side of the alley. Our property's on that alley.
Yeah, just a show of hands, who else is here on? Right.
I don't see her.
Yeah, Mary's not here. I haven't seen her.
Since the applicant is not here, I don't think we should hear it. And there's, deny it.
What is the proper procedure for us? To deny it, continue it?
Well, that's, that's at the reasonable discretion of the, board, because the applicant has not appeared, and if the applicant did not notify staff of the need for a continuance or an ability to appear, you could deny it, or you could move it to the end of the agenda, or you could, move it to one other date to give the applicant. So, those are your options to give the applicant.
I don't see any reason to put it at the end of the agenda. If they're not here.
I'm advised that they're elderly.
Madam Chair,
That they're elderly.
if I may, I mean, I live in this neighborhood, and I would hate to deny it. I don't know if maybe we can defer it and
Yes, that's your options. You can defer it or move to right.
and maybe see why she didn't show up. It's a little odd.
May we address?
If you would make it short. One of you.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that.
Name and address, please, for them.
Magda Mena, 100 Southwest 26th Road. Since 2001, when we moved in, Mary told me that they wanted to do that. And I guess until now, she's actually requested it. And we agreed to do it. And I know most of the neighbors, from what I heard, because it's the first time I just saw my notice outside of my house, that's when I realized that this was happening. So that's why we're here. But she's not there. She moved out a couple of months ago. I saw a container and da-da-da-da. There's someone living in the back of the house, right next to the alley. I mean, she wanted this for a long, long, long time, so maybe she has the right idea to kind of postpone it. I don't know what's going on with her.
Why don't we defer
No, they
and
don't.
can
They
Harry,
don't need to be here. No.
whoever, get in touch with
All right.
the applicant and see what's going on?
I know that family lives on the other corner.
Let me mention one other thing, because it didn't seem like the board's predilection, but staff is correct. Another option you have is, if staff is recommending approval, if you have a public hearing and there is no opposition, and the matter is of that nature, you could decide to hear it and just vote. Under those particular, that's not for your cases like the ones you've heard tonight, but something like this.
Is anybody in opposition to this?
Not that I know of.
At least here.
I'm only here because I have a couple of questions. I thought it was going to go through.
I mean, if we can hear it today, I think it would be.
Yeah. Right. You can't hear it. I mean, you have competent, substantial evidence based on what staff has represented, and you need to have your public portion, and that kind of application you can hear if you wish.
Okay, why don't you go ahead? You said you have some questions for us?
The only question, I mean, I thought for sure it was going to go through, and my question is, why do I have to, because I didn't know that there was a condition of giving right-of-way or something like that, access to, oh. No, he described something that there's a condition, right? As long as there's, well, I don't know how to say it, but that. And my question is, what do I have to do, and how do I apply to move my fence? That's to move it, because I think the split is in half, correct? I mean, I don't know anything about this.
Staff.
Oh, great.
The city code states that a public utility easement will automatically be reserved on the footprint of the alley if the alley is closed and vacated. So the alley reverts back to private ownership. However, the utility companies can keep their facilities in that area. And the next question, I believe, was what does she have to do to put a fence there? If the alley is closed and vacated by this board, that she may go apply for a building permit to place a fence in the middle of the alley.
She has a fence there already, that's what the question was.
She wants to move it back.
She wants to, right.
You have a fence already, correct?
I have a fence already, but
Yeah, you need to come up and speak into the mic. Speak into the mic.
There's a fence, but if we move the fence back to take half of the alley, I would have to make my, my gate bigger for one of those FPL trucks to go through to my backyard.
I'll tell you what, why don't you talk to staff? We'll defer, can she talk to staff outside? And we can
That's
get
a-
on with another item?
But that's a building, that's going to happen to any of those neighbors who want to do that. That's a building permit that she has to apply for.
Okay.
So, I mean, she has to go, well, this decision has nothing to do with that.
Right, but I just thought, he could answer her questions.
Yeah, but she can answer questions whether we vote on this or not.
But I have a question for staff. She needs to provide access for the truck to go through, or I thought those trucks had the capability of going?
You don't have to provide access for the trucks.
Okay.
The utility company will have to make their provisions to be able to gain access to the easement,
Right.
should they have to maintain their facilities.
Right.
But
Right.
if she's a fence on the property and has to move the fence to make it easy for the utility companies to get through, does she have to bear that expense?
If she has a fence there, she'll have to temporarily take down the fence so that they can do their, if that's necessary. The utility companies, however, usually work with the property owners when they take care of their facilities.
Okay.
Okay.
Have your questions been answered?
No. No, who do I need to contact to find out more about what I need to do to, number one, apply for?
You're right.
Said it.
Okay, all right, that's all. Then,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, is anybody else from the public like to speak on this item? Please come forward now. Okay, seeing no one, the hearing is closed, and I'll bring it back for a
And
motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, and I know we've seen a few of these recently, and I think it's because there was a big homeowners association, the roads association meeting, and there were some issues with these alleys that we have in the neighborhood and how they're not being maintained, and there's a lot of crime going on. So somebody from the city was there to explain the process of how to close the alley, and I think that's why maybe we're seeing some of these coming before us. So that's the reason why I'd make a motion to approve, even though we don't have the applicant here, because we really don't have any opposition.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Leovano Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Garavaglia?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Gutierrez? Dr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Milian?
Yes.
Mr. Pina?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Torrance?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
No.
And Ms. Tarbert?
Yes.
Motion passes 10-1. This decision is final unless appealed in hearing boards within 15 days. Item 4, File ID 14-00088AC, a resolution of the Miami Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board recommending approval or denial of a resolution of the Miami City Commission closing, vacating, abandoning, and discontinuing for public use an alley located between Southwest 7th Street and Southwest 8th Street and between Southwest 57th Avenue and approximately 310 feet to the east of Southwest 57th Avenue, Miami, Florida.
Leonard Helmer's Public Works Department. At the September 5, 2013 Platten Street Committee meeting, the committee reviewed the tentative plat of CVS on 57th Avenue subdivision and determined that all technical requirements contained in the City of Miami Code subdivision regulations have been met and has approved the tentative plat. The members of the Platten Street Committee have further considered the request for vacation and closure of the alley with respect to the City of Miami Code requirements and have voted 6 in favor and 0 in denial of this vacation and closure request.
Madam Chair, I'd like to recuse myself from this item. The engineering firm that I work for represents CVS on multiple projects. It's not a part of this project, but it's nonetheless an interest.
It's still a conflict. Thank you, and just don't participate on, thank you.
If I may, good evening again. Iris Escara with offices at 333 Southeast 2nd Avenue. I'm joined this evening by Henry Torres of Astor Development Group and Paul Tremblay of Bose Development Group and Eduardo Garache, the architect for this particular project. Just to walk you through, this is actually the intersection of Southwest 8th Street and 57th Avenue. We have the Pasta Factory offset on one corner, the Latin America on another corner, the gateway into El Prado of Coral Gables, and then on the northeastern corner, there's like an old gas station that's there right at the intersection. The property that is the subject of our application today starts with the Adult Entertainment Club that's called Bottoms Up. It's a pink building. Goes all the way through the corner, includes these other two businesses, includes the auto service location. And many, many moons ago, it used to be a gas station. Now it's an auto service location, as well as on 57th Avenue, the same auto repair shop is included, as well as some surface parking lots which are currently used to park STS vehicles. Our application proposes to redirect a private alley that actually connects all the way from 56th Avenue to 57th Avenue. When it gets to 57th Avenue, it becomes almost like a T-shape at the intersection. What we've proposed to do is to actually redirect the alley so it would have an access towards 7th Street. We've worked with the fire department in order to make sure it includes its turning radius that it would require, and therefore close and vacate the other portion of the current private alley in order to accommodate the CVS right at the intersection of 8th Street and 57th Avenue. We have two neighbors that weren't able to be here today, but I would like to introduce their records. It's Rosalida Moreira at 5650 Southwest 7th Street and Maria Valguez at 5629 Southwest 7th Street, which are also neighbors to the private alley. And I would also, in speaking this evening with some of the neighbors that are here, they have asked us to accommodate two restrictions, and we are happy to do so as conditions. Some of the neighbors have asked that we widen the entryway on Southwest 7th Street in order to accommodate some of the vehicles that come through the alley in order to make sure that there's a turning radius here. And we are happy to accommodate that as part of our site plan development to make sure that the radius here can accommodate whatever vehicles come through the alley. In addition to that, the neighbors have asked that there be no new parking added of on-street parking on Southwest 7th Street abutting the site, and we are happy to make sure that we put in the appropriate landscaping and median to make sure that there's no on-street parking on Southwest 7th Street. With that, we have the recommendation of the Platte and Street Committee, the Planning Department, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions before I open for the public hearing?
Just to clarify, I'm not exactly sure, where exactly is this, because it just shows here that it's closing between the 7th Street and 57th Avenue, and I'm just curious because I remember the last meeting we were at, they said you can't create a dead end.
Correct.
So where exactly is this?
And I'm sorry about
I can't
this.
see it in the packet.
This yellow is an error on my part, so don't look at the bottom yellow. The existing alley comes straight through and goes all the way out through 57th Avenue. So in essence, if you start on 56th Avenue and you go behind all the commercial on 8th Street, you go straight through all the way to 57th Avenue. In addition, for whatever reason, this alley has almost like a little arm leg of, I believe it's 8 feet that comes out this way as well as also part of the private alley. So we're asking to close this piece here, and in return, we're giving back this here, and it's wider because fire asked for the radius. So we're closing and vacating 5,043 square feet, and we're dedicating back 4,827.
It just didn't show here, that's why I was asking that. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question more on the CVS. So you're removing what's there now?
Right now there, because of the angle where you're at, you weren't able to see my board. And actually, on 57th Avenue, it's right at the intersection of 57th and 8th Street. So if you're looking at this, it's almost like, thank you, it's catty corner from the Latin America. Across the street there's a furniture store and then the pasta factory. So here, this is the intersection of 57th Avenue and 8th Street, and it includes the commercial next to it, a small business, and then it includes the bottom-up adult entertainment store, as well as the lots along the rear on Southwest 7th Street.
So all of that is...
All of that, which includes the STS parking, all that loading, all that...
It's going to be removed and...
All that's going to be removed, and it's going to be cleared out for just the surface area to accommodate the area, the parking, and a CVS.
All right, I'm going to open it to the public. If you'd like to speak on this item, please come forward now. And as stated before, please give your name and address for the record.
Hello, sorry. My name is Manny Alvarez. I presently own 2 commercial properties directly south of the alley that is being proposed to be closed. I own a gun store.
I need an...
Oh, I'm sorry. Manny Alvarez, and the property that I own is 5643 Southwest 8th Street and 5615 Southwest 8th Street. They're commercial properties. I own the properties, and I have a business there, which is called Miami Police Supply. We've been there 25 years. The alley, the way it sits now, you could say it starts at 56th Avenue and exits on 57th Avenue. We have, aside from garbage pickup and UPS trucks that traverse the alley on a daily and weekly basis, we have 2 or 3 times a month, we will have 18-wheelers come in to deliver stuff on pallets. The problem is when they're closing the alley straight and making that L, they have a large turning radius where they turn into the north. But when they exit into 7th Street is legally a 2-lane street. In effect, it's basically a 1-lane street. You have parking on both sides. And we discussed this earlier. They want to widen the ramp to be able to get out there, but you're still going to have a problem with a big rig specifically to making that turn. And I think it's going to impact our business and our deliveries. And, you know, they can say we're going to do this and that, but looking at the long range, I mean, I welcome the property being redeveloped. It's going to increase the value of my property. I think it's a good neighbor that's coming in, but I'm looking at the long range workings of my business and my tenants as far as the deliveries or trash pickup and other stuff that's concerned, where they're not going to be able to see. Right now, when you have the alley going all the way across, they're exiting on 57th Avenue, which is a 4-lane street, so they can easily turn in and without a problem. They're going to have them turn in the middle of the block and exit on 7th Street, which is even though it's a 2-alley or a 2-lane street, it's really parking on both sides, so it's a single lane. I mean, when I come through there behind the gun store, and if a car is coming the opposite direction, I have to move over to like a driveway for them to pass through, so I can't see how these trucks are going to effectively, you know, go in and out through there. And I think it's going to impact myself and obviously the other neighbors that live there that don't know about what's going on. So my recommendation, if they want to do something that addresses this and that ensures that we're not going to have a problem down the road, an unfettered access to that and an exit to that won't create a situation, I would be all forward, but only under those conditions. And right now, the way that it's been presented to me, they said, well, we're going to widen we discussed this outside before the meeting, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I still don't think in practicality it's going to work. So basically, that is my concern, and I advise you or request of this board to either defer it until it's studied further, or deny it one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak?
Bob Powers, 565 Northeast 66th Street, and I've cautioned you guys on this before. And this is a prime example. Here's a property owner who has business to conduct, and they actually want to give away his alleyway and access to the back of his property. And the only reason I'm up here talking to you is that we did it in MIMO 20 years ago, they closed all the alleyways, and we have buildings there that you cannot access the back of those buildings anymore. So I caution you again on alleyway closures in commercial districts and all the unseen things that come along with that. Hence, 18-wheelers, that's where they're supposed to be going. That's where the trucks, and in Biscayne Boulevard, they now stop in the middle of the street to do the deliveries to the left and right because there's no alleyways behind any of those businesses. So that's why I always get up here and caution you about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Cliff Dropkin. I own the property at 5640 Southwest 7th Street. And I think I heard that the applicant is looking, or the zoning board is looking to close all the on-street parking on 7th Street. I understand that the applicant is cannibalizing about 3 or 4 residences for this project. And in order to do that, the rest of that neighborhood, everyone parks on the street. Not only that, but people who don't want to go down 8th Street and make a right turn on Red Road use 56th Avenue as a shortcut and come around on 7th Street and drive down the street at about 45 miles an hour. And there hasn't been any traffic control. But I would like to see the board not close the on-street parking on 7th Street because that could be a hardship to all the rest of the residences.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public?
If I may have a few minutes to address their concerns?
Sure. Okay, the public hearing is closed, and I'll bring it back for a short rebuttal.
Just to address one of the gentleman's concerns, we're not closing the alley that abuts their commercial properties. That alley remains the same. What we are modifying is the exit of the alley along the property. Furthermore, one of the things that when we discussed with the gentleman was that the 7th Street parking that abuts our site, one of the neighbors asked us to remove that parking, and we agreed to remove that parking. So in essence, we're not removing all the on-street parking along 7th Street that is not abutting our site, but one of the neighbors asked us to do that, so that's why we agreed to do it, to remove the strip of parking along 7th Street. With regards to the alley that's back here, its existing alley is 14 feet wide, so it accommodates most delivery trucks and garbage trucks. And we were aware that this alley is actually used by some of the commercials. That's why we were very cautious to make sure that there was plenty of turning radius and so forth. And one of our neighbors brought a very good point today. In essence, he was saying this can accommodate the turning radius. However, once he gets to 7th Street here, this turning radius here might be too narrow for him. And that's why we agreed to widen this here in order to accommodate whatever truck services he may had. And we asked him what size trucks and so forth in order to make sure that this is wide enough to accommodate the maneuverability of the truck through 7th Street. So we are sensitive to the neighbors' concerns, and we're happy to work with them in order to make sure that the appropriate redirection of the easement is included in our site plan.
Yeah, I have a question. Why doesn't the alley exit on 8th Street?
It's a business, isn't it?
If we were to exit on 8th Street,
Excuse me, I need your name and address for the record first.
my name is Henry Torres, I'm with the Astor Companies, 2601 South Bayshore Drive. If we were to exit down 8th Street, it would ruin the conceptual parking that we have. We wouldn't have the same 28 feet to get out if we came out towards 8th Street.
It's a design restriction, not a
Exactly.
code that you can't exit the alley on 8th Street.
Correct.
I mean,
Oh, we could,
my
but you
point is
could-
I'd go back and redesign it because I'm not comfortable dumping all 18-wheeler traffic kind of, into the residential neighborhood.
If you heard the conversation, the gentleman said he said 2-3 trucks a month.
Yeah, but an 18-wheeler going down, trying to come out of there, I just see that as, unless you angled it to come out, I mean, I don't know how an 18-wheeler can make that turn.
If a fire truck can make this turn, an 18-wheeler can make the turn.
Fire truck's not as big as 18-wheeler is bigger than a fire truck.
It's about the same size.
Well, I still think going into 8th Street, it's a bit wider, so they can get out.
Sorry, I just checked with the architect, and he says it might work. he says he could be able to, in essence, almost flip it over. See the blue that's here, almost flip it in the other direction. And he could be able to potentially accommodate the exit rather than going to 7th Street, coming out to Southwest 8th Street.
To me, I think that's a little bit more reasonable to have that commercial traffic exit into a bigger, commercial, wider road. I don't know if that helps the gentleman with the gun shop, and do you feel better about that, or do you have come to the mic?
Your question is if it more feasible for them to go out on these streets, is what you're saying?
Well, I'm just saying is exit the alley onto H Street, which is a wider road, so that your 18-wheeler, I'm assuming when it enters or exits, needs a pretty wide turning.
Obviously, it would be easier for the 18-wheeler to exit through there because H Street is a wider road. It's basically 5 lanes and middle turning, whatever. The concern is that the way they have showed me the original plans, it's also going to be a point of entry to the CVS. So I don't know how easy it's going to be with cars coming and going for them to maneuver that area. Where the exit on 7th Street, I think they're more designated as a typical exit, not the 8th Street or the 57 Avenue main entrances to this complex. As I was looking at it, I don't know.
I mean, my guess is you're going to have entrance on both sides, and that you're going to fight it either way. And then my last comment is where, thank you for coming up.
Sure.
The part of the, I guess, the swale area where you said one resident didn't want parking on the 7th
Correct.
Street.
The same gentleman.
How are you going to prevent the parking? I mean, you said you were going to try to accommodate that.
Right, with curb cuts and landscaping, usually, you raise the elevation so that the cars can't park there.
So would you be putting a curb in?
We'd be putting, landscaping and a higher curb, kind of like create like treed area, like a little landscape area, so in essence, the cars can't park immediately abutting. However, if we flip it, then here we can accommodate the parking, because his concern, the reason we were trying to accommodate the same gentleman's concerns, that if he had to come and turn here, if there's cars parked here, it would impede the truck's maneuverability to be able to get out. However, if the board would consider, conditioning that we flip it, then I think the parking on 7th Street can remain, because the concern was to address his concern about trucks being able to get out here, and if there's cars parked, the truck can't maneuver.
So you're saying that the residents along 7th Street on the north side want parking on their street across the street from them?
I can't answer to that because I don't know. What the neighbors on the north want on 7th Street? No.
And where I'm going is I'm just envisioning people, when CVS lot fills, everyone's going to be parking on the swale in front of these residents' houses, and they're going to start complaining.
Right.
And if you're already offering to kind of prevent the parking by putting trees and landscaping, can you go ahead and just put a curb around there?
Right.
So that it's, people are going to be less likely to jump the curb rather than just they'll ride up easily on grass.
No, definitely. And we hope that the CVS parking would get filled because it's got 52 spaces.
No, and because I drive that every day. I mean, that corner is just, it's a little rough.
Yeah, it's very rough.
So I think with those two, I think I'd be comfortable, but I'd open it up to the rest.
I had a question. I just want to, and maybe it was cleared up and maybe I missed it. I'm trying to vote for the concerns of the business owner. Is his business on the, I guess it would be my right? Okay, so he would still have that alley to use. That's
yes.
not getting closed.
Correct. All the alley behind his property remains open. The only thing is how the truck gets out once he gets past his property.
Okay. And so the trucks that service his business and his tenant's business, will they be able to, so they typically come in from that direction and they go all the way through? That's what they've done in the past?
Correct.
And then okay.
So in essence, from the 14-foot alley, we've created a 24-foot wide alley with a big turning radius to allow for any truck to be able to maneuver. And now, in essence, we could consider flipping the exact same easement in the other direction at the board's will.
And just to echo my colleague, if the gentleman, if you would come back up, please. I just had a quick. This is what public works forms. Because I do think we need to be mindful of closing alleys. I think that's that is a concern, especially for commercial. Is the trucks that service your businesses, will they be able to make that turn even if it flips? I mean, what is that, does that kind of address your concerns?
Well, the initial proposal was that they were going to exit on 7th Street, and I didn't have a problem with the initial turn towards 7th Street. It's when they hit 7th Street, they weren't going to negotiate that turn. And it was said here that an 18-wheeler, but maybe a garbage truck can negotiate that turn. I mean, people there are parking on the street. Now, flipping it and people exiting on 8th Street may be easier egress, for lack of a better word, but I just don't know about negotiating that turn, because I think that's going to become a focal entry point into the CVS because it's facing 8th Street. People coming into that shopping complex are going to come in through 8th Street and 57th Avenue. They're not going to come in through 7th. That was a dedicated exit pretty much, except that the exit wouldn't work. Leaving it through 8th Street, you're going to have the competing traffic coming in and out, where the 18-wheeler's trying to make a left and then a right onto 8th Street. That's the concern I have.
How is that addressed? Because will be wide enough? I imagine it can't be wide enough for a truck and the traffic to come in.
Well, here, what would
it's from
happen
8th
is
Street.
the truck would come in, we'd flip this radius around, and they would have, this is about 105 feet of length before they could get to here and then make a right turn. So there's a significant ability to be able to stack a large truck, which is usually about 45 feet in length, to be able to maneuver, come out, straighten out, and then turn right. Here, they will not be able to make a left, because 8th Street is just,
Right.
they can't, but they will be able to make a right and maybe circulate. Also, I want to point out 57th Avenue is an FDOT right-of-way. We can't have entries and exits off of 57th Avenue. So we're limited to 7th Street and 8th Street.
Just, I think one of the concerns I think he was mentioning is that, he doesn't want people coming, or it may be that people start using that 8th Street alley as an entrance into CVS. I don't know,
Right.
maybe if it's, I don't know how it's going to be dedicated, if it's just going to be a one-way. Is it going to be
Right.
just one way, or?
Well, here we anticipated that it would be a two-way.
Oh, okay.
To the extent that here, I would assume that the traffic would be able to coordinate itself in the sense that I don't really foresee a lot of delivery trucks coming in all that often. I would see more customers coming than delivery trucks, but I think it's enough of a surface area that everybody will be able to coordinate the vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion with my two caveats that the alley exit onto Southwest 8th Street to accommodate the truck traffic as appropriate.
And I'll second.
And then the second one is that on the south side of or north side of the property along 7th Street, that I guess curb and gutter be provided the length of the CVS property.
Yes.
As appropriate to avoid commercial parking in front of the residential neighbors.
Understood.
And you accept those conditions?
I accept the two conditions.
And you second both?
And I'll second that motion. As amended.
As amended.
Mr. Garavaglia?
Let me just, before I vote, did you want to speak, sir? I mean, you made some comments, I mean, just, well, come, I mean, I know, but I didn't know if he...
My name is Roberto Quintairos. I live at 5673 Street, in front of the proposed CVS. My house is the first one after the alley that is going to be closed on the other side of 7th Street. I don't have any problem, really, because the situation now is very bad for a residential area. Maybe with the CVS is going to improve, because all that garage, mechanicals, all the commercial there is a lot of cars parking in the street, blocking the house every day. So I expect to CVS to improve that situation. The only thing I want to point out, that area is the Miami Highlands. All the streets in that area and the avenues from 8th Street to 6th, 4th, From 57 to 56, 55, all have curbs, original design. And Miami City is fixing the streets, already fixed, 4th Street, 5th Street, 6th Street, and they rebuild the curbs. So I expect that CBS build the same condition that is now there, rebuild the curbs. So in regard with the parking, it's going to be less parking. But there is another commercial area in 57 next to my house that is a lot of office and business that use a lot of parking in the street. So the parking is always a problem. I see in 58 Avenue, from 8 to 6, they put signs, the city put signs, no parking allowed, only residential. Maybe in 7 they can do the same thing. But really, that street is a mess. And with the traffic that is going out of 8th Street, like the other gentleman said, is very bad too.
Thank you.
No good details.
Understood, but
Can't wait to speak.
I vote yes, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Milian.
Yes.
Ms. Liavano Cruz? It was recommended approval with 2 conditions.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Dr. Martin?
No.
Mr. Pina?
Yes.
Ms. Torrens?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
No.
Motion passes 7-2.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Excuse me, I vote yes.
Ms. Tarbert?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-2. Sorry.
Madam Chair, while we're getting the people up there, I wonder if we could put on a future agenda the issue of notice. So I know we're all tired, I want to discuss it tonight, but I'd like to hear from the city what the rules are and how they came to be, and maybe we can make some recommendations to change them if we think it's appropriate.
And you'd want that as just like a discussion item at the end of, right?
Yeah. Please.
And to have a copy of the notice regulations, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, here, items 5 and 6, they will be heard together, but they will be separate votes.
Item 5, File ID 14-00053LU, an ordinance of the Miami City Commission amending ordinance number 10544 as amended, the future land use map of the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan pursuant to small-scale amendment procedures subject to sections 163.3187 Florida statutes by changing the future land use designation of the acreage described herein of real property at approximately 622 Northeast 80th Street, Miami, Florida, from medium-density multifamily residential to restricted commercial. And item 6, File ID 14-00053ZC, a resolution of the Miami Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board recommending approval or denial of an ordinance of the Miami City Commission amending the zoning atlas of ordinance number 13114 as amended by changing the zoning classification from T5R to T680 for the property located at approximately 622 Northeast 80th Street, Miami, Florida, making findings containing a severability clause and providing for an effective date.
All right, good evening. Harold Ruck with the Planning Department. And as just previously stated, this is a companion item for a future land use change and a zoning change. The future land use would change from medium-density multi-family residential to restricted commercial, and the zoning would change from T5R Urban Center Zone to T680 Urban Core Zone. The location of the application is at 622 Northeast 80th Street. The size of the property is approximately 0.159 acres. Planning Department recommends approval of this the recommendation is for approval. What is being shown now is a site plan on your monitors. You can get an approximate idea of where this location is between 79th and 80th Street and Biscayne Boulevard to the west. This next slide gives you an idea of what the existing land use is or what is currently in the area. You would notice that there's a lot of black, in this case, which is representative of services, commercial, retail activities. You can see that they're south of the property, west of the property, and along the corridor. There's some office designations. The residential is to the east, but the property itself and adjacent properties are vacant at this point. The next slide shows you the future land use designations. That the property is currently medium density, multifamily, and along the corridor of Biscayne Boulevard, it is restricted commercial, and to the on the south is also restricted commercial. This is a single family to the northeast, but there's a buffer of it with the medium density multifamily, and the request is to go to restricted commercial. Zoning designations. It is currently T5R, as you can see, and to the west is T680, and along the corridors, similar T680. There's a T50 to the south, which does allow mixed uses, and then to the east is T5R, and provides a buffer with the T3R single family. The request is to go to T680, which essentially lines up as an extension of the T680, which is to the north. The recommendation of the Planning Department is approval. The subject area is surrounded by restricted commercial as far as the land is concerned to the north, south, and west. The proposed designation will be consistent with the uses surrounding the property and higher permitted densities along the commercial corridor of Biscayne Boulevard. Furthermore, the density at 150 dwelling units is consistent with the future land use densities permitted to the north, south, and west. The addition of commercial uses to this site will serve the nearby residential neighborhoods and further encourage pedestrian activity and a reduction in vehicular miles traveled for those neighborhoods. And further, the site is in close proximity to Miami-Dade County Metro buses. Where the zoning is concerned, the adjacent parcels to the north and west are also T680. And the parcels to the east is T5R, and the parcel to the south is designated T50, which does allow mixed use. The requested change will be compatible with the areas and consistent with the commercial character of the Biscayne Boulevard corridor. Lastly, the covenant was proffered that would restrict the allowable uses. Notwithstanding the T680 zoning, the owner will restrict the uses to multifamily housing, live, work, office, educational, food service establishments, and those general commercial uses found to be compatible with office uses. And with that, staff recommends approval of this application. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Dan Espino from the law firm of Weiss Serota Helfman, 2525 Ponce de Leon Boulevard, 7th floor, Coral Gables. On behalf of the applicant, Pier Real Estate, substituting this evening for Tony Resio. He apologizes, had another hearing this evening. So for those of you used to his filet mignon level of presentation, I may have to just do my best to get to sirloin steak level this evening. As staff reported very succinctly, certainly, this is a straightforward set of companion applications with the purpose is to permit the designation of the site for a commercial function, specifically the use for an office, so that this location can take advantage of the business, transit, and other community amenities. If I can paint you a picture of the community, hello. And you'll have to indulge me. The fact that I left the office last means that I don't get an easel. So as you can see, this is a copy of the GIS, a screen capture of the GIS map. The red represents restricted commercial. There is a bit of a sawtooth alignment here, but as you can see, it buttresses out quite a bit further, and we have a bit of a peninsula here of multifamily that seems to be out of character with. That's all right, Derek. You don't got to do that. Thank you, sir. And so you can see that it's buttressing into what would be considered the commercial area. The zoning really paints a better picture of the entire area. Certainly the O indicates commercial use, which you can see it's up and down the Biscayne Boulevard corridor as well as the 79th Street corridor. And then you've got a out parcel here of an area that's T5R. So the height is there, just like here. The office component is not. What our client is attempting to do here is certainly get the commercial function for an office building, but also get the density to provide structured parking within the building. A couple of interesting features of this area is that there are, these little hash marks here are actually roadblocks. There's a roadblock at the alley here at 7th Avenue, as well as at the end of 80th Street, which means that the only means of ingress and egress is going to be from Biscayne Boulevard onto 80th Street. So the impact, the traffic impact on the surrounding single-family residential is going to be almost negligible. And certainly right above it on the next side, the next street over, interestingly enough, there is a means of ingress into that area, but there is a roadblock that prevents egress out into Biscayne Boulevard. As was mentioned, the function, the use, and certainly the zoning that we're seeking is compatible with the surrounding area. It's trending towards commercial. My conversation with staff is that the hope is that this is going to be one of the next areas that begins to redevelop. Just north of the property, right here, is a building, I believe it's called the Bank. It's loft, multifamily. It's got a parking garage that directly abuts single-family residential. And so in this particular situation, as Hal mentioned, there is actually a step down, a buffer, if you will, between the commercial use and multifamily and single-family residential. It will, in effect, fill in a line that has otherwise been contemplated by either the development, by Miami 21, or the slow changes that have occurred to the area. It does further a number of plan policy ideas, such as mixed balance in the neighborhood. In effect, this is creating a mixed use without necessarily it occurring within the same building. Right across the alleyway here from the property are two restaurants. Here are lofts, so there's actually a work-live situation. There are other restaurants in the surrounding area. There are transit stops that are nearby, and our client wants to take advantage of that and provide a product in terms of an office building that will really begin to turn this area into a work, live, dine, shop area for those that want to have a greater pedestrian activity lifestyle.
Isn't there a bar on the bottom level of the residences on the top, right, catty corner?
I'm sorry?
Isn't there a bar, Eros, on the bottom level with apartments on top, catty corner?
Could you?
It was 2 blocks over?
Right, I was going to say on the corner.
82nd, okay. Thank you.
Well, I mean, just to conclude, we believe that the use change and the zoning change is compatible with the neighborhood. We think that the use that we're trying to pursue will enhance the neighborhood and provide an additional work amenity that will further enhance that community. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Okay, I'm going to open it to the public. If you'd like to speak on this item, please come forward at this time.
Good evening, Ken Jett, 8320 East Dixie Highway. Definitely opposed to this upzoning. A land use change at this location may set a negative precedent and create a domino effect in regards to future land use change applications throughout this neighborhood. The Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan Land Use Goal, LU11, encourages land use patterns that protect and enhance quality of life in Miami City's residential neighborhoods. And 5, promotes the efficient use of land and minimizes land use conflicts. This change would represent a potential intrusion of commercial uses into a stable residential neighborhood. Land Use Policy LU 1.1.3 provides the protection of all areas of the city from encroachment of incompatible land uses and adverse impacts of future land uses in adjacent areas that disrupt or degrade public health and safety. The potential commercial uses may be incompatible with the residential areas. Commercial uses should be limited to the commercial corridor along Biscayne Boulevard. MCNP Housing Policy HO 1.1.7 states that the city will continue to control, through restrictions in the city's development regulations, large-scale or intense commercial and industrial land development which may negatively impact any residential neighborhood. The proposed change would allow for larger scale and commercial uses that could potentially negatively impact the residential neighborhood. Housing Policy HO 1.1.9 states that through land development regulations, the city will protect and enhance existing viable neighborhoods in those areas suitable for housing. Being a resident of the neighborhood, this location sits behind Sushi Siam. Yes, as the applicant's representative pointed out, there is a barricade at the end of that street, but you will see that that entire street is medium density housing and single family homes, as is characteristic of our neighborhood. So we ask that you do not grant this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Madam Chairperson and committee members. My name is Ellen Ecker. I'm with M.H. Burks and Associates, 111 Palm Avenue, Miami Beach, Florida. I am here to approve the zoning change and the land use change. We are the immediate neighbor to this property at 630 and 640 Northeast 80th Street. We think the time has come. It abuts 79th Street, and the area has been changing. We've owned the property for 40 years, and we think the time has come. Thank you.
40, you said? 40?
Bob Powers, 565 Northeast 66th Street. I actually live in the area. That is Sushi Siam on the corner. Then there's a kickboxing thing. My concern with this is spot zoning. This, here again, we've got one piece of property that's being changed. The zoning on it's being changed. The other thing is that there's also an alleyway that transects it, goes right through it. That's a public right-of-way alleyway. So you have that, and then it's great that people on Miami Beach think that this is a wonderful thing. The bottom line is we live with it. So every time you guys do this stuff, we're the ones who actually feel the effects of it. So, and the other homes on the street, there's the other properties there. That's a vacant lot. Next to it is a single-family home, and there's single-family homes all down the street. Doesn't matter that they're zone T5. My house is a T5, and mine's a fourplex, but it's still a low-density project for that area. At any rate, I do not approve. Thank you.
Paul Mann, 1665 Southwest 23rd Street, Miami. I oppose the change in zoning for this property because a couple of you, at least a couple of you, were here when Miami 21 was developed. This property was left at T5 for a reason, and the only benefit, I say the main benefit I see with an upzoning here would be it would allow the property to go from roughly 70 feet to 120, and there's a reason why it was left in the buffer zone as a lower structure because of the residential properties behind it. So I would urge you to respect the original plan in Miami 21 to leave this at T5. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Luis Herrera, President Vizcaya Romone Association, member of the MNU. And we are 1181 Southwest 22nd Terrace, Miami, Florida. And you can see it from Miami 21, they're going to protect the neighborhood because 11,000, they break it up, all the neighborhood. Now, and in 21,000, Miami 21, they're going to do the same way. The neighborhood, they ask you to deny this because it's a neighborhood. The corridor is Biscayne Boulevard. Do it on Biscayne Boulevard. Leave the neighborhood alone. Please, you are the representative of the neighbors. He represented the interested of the people of the other lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public hearing is closed, and I'll bring it back for any more discussion or questions. Or you have a rebuttal?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure.
Let me start off by addressing some of the initial points, which is in the same way that the gentleman, Mr. Jett, has suggested policies that are against this. There are quite a few policies that this type of situation actually furthers. Policy LU 1315 states the city will continue to encourage a development pattern that enhances existing neighborhoods by developing a balanced mix of uses, including areas for employment, shopping, housing, and recreation in close proximity to each other. And certainly this will do just that. And it is in trend with other changes, and it is in contemplation of Miami 21. I mean, this is a pretty interesting situation where the surrounding area seems to have contemplated going commercial, and for some reason this parcel has remained really a little, like I said, a peninsula into the commercial areas, where it would clearly fill in that area in terms of just the use. Additionally, Policy LU 1610 states that the city's land development regulations and policies will allow for the provision of safe and convenient on-site traffic flow and vehicular parking and will provide access by a variety of modes. The restricted commercial designation allows for misuse development to occur in a manner that will maximize the use of those routes. And effectively, that's exactly what it will do. They want to take advantage of the fact that this is going to foster pedestrian activity, foster bike travel, foster bus travel, and allow people to walk to a business amenity, walk to a retail amenity, and walk to their homes. The character of that neighborhood is not single-family homes. Yes, there is 2 vacant lots to the east. There's a vacant lot that is zoned T6 restricted commercial and T6-8 directly north. What we have to the east is a couple multifamily. Then you have across the street another multifamily building that's being gutted and redone, followed by some what I believe are quadplexes to the end. With respect to the speakers, I haven't heard, other than we don't want it, any specific complaints as to what it will degrade in the community. They haven't mentioned that it's going to create traffic, because obviously the barricades and prevent that from occurring. They haven't said that it's going to detract from the neighborhood. They just said that they don't want a commercial. I mean, frankly, if the surrounding T5R were developed with multifamily, it's quite possible that some of the people that will live on the street will be able to walk a lot over to a job that occurs in this building that we're hoping to be able to build under this designation and zoning. So I'd ask you to consider it. While it is a individual lot that's being rezoned, in the context of the entire corridors, I should say, 79th Street and Biscayne Boulevard, and the lines that occur and the uses that occur on there, it is a compatible use, and as such, the planning department has opined. So I would ask you to consider that, please.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. I don't know if you know the answer to this. I don't know if there's any plans at all at this point, but what is the height, I guess, general height of the area as far as the medium density on that block? Let's just even limit it to just that block. in connection with what you guys you would like to build.
You're saying what are we
The
permitting?
height is really what I'm talking about.
Our plan is a 7 to 8 story office building. And the reason it's 7 to 8 stories is so that we can provide the structured parking underneath. It's still very conceptual at this point, but our client has even talked about providing such thing as, for the limited parking that's going to be provided there, elevator parking for the respective floors to maximize the amount of space that's there. But the idea would be, again, to have the T5R serve as a buffer. I mean, we have to think about it in the context of what could be built there under the current designation and zoning. And certainly, the T5R height would buffer that between that and the single family. Over here, right above the 2 parcels up, which abuts the furthest, you have quite literally I believe that's a 8-story building, the bank, next to a parking garage, next to single-family homes. So there is no buffer, there is no step down. Here, because of the T5R, we're guaranteed a step down, even if that step down is 30 feet before you get to a multifamily building, before you get to single-family.
Just to reiterate, the T5 is going to allow up to 5 stories already. That's what's allowed. And it's T68 along the corridor is 8 stories. So that's what's currently allowed to go there, just to.
With the lot radius, the maximum they still can build is 8 stories, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Because I know there's certain restrictions when it's next to a T3 or okay, thank you.
But isn't it spot zoning, though? I mean, I'm looking at the map, and it's this is one little sliver that they want to change, and the whole rest of the block is something else. How does that make sense?
I would argue this is not spot zoning. When you have spot zoning, you're going to have a designation that is much higher than what is going on around it. In this case, when you talk land use and zoning, it's an extension of what's already there to the west and to the north. So it's just an extension. It's not a spot. It's not an isolated case in which everything around it is different. What's allowed is what you can do north of it or west of it.
But what concerns me is that there's only one parcel that you want to zone reclassify, and every other parcel of land is going to be a different zoning code.
Not to the west. It's going to be the same.
Same block. On the one, talk about the one block. You have the one parcel that you want changed to multi-density, to restricted commercial, and everything else is multi-density, multifamily residential. That's my problem.
Madam Chair, if I may, to answer Mr. Young's question, this is right across the street. Right across the street, it is restricted commercial. Right across the street, same lot, is T68. You can see how over here, once you cross 79th, it also does this kick out. This is quite literally, as Hal mentioned, an extension of this. And so it wouldn't make this out of character. It wouldn't. It's not as if we're. I mean, to be candid, and with all due respect to the folks in this building, the extension of this transect from here out here without a buffer whatsoever. Certainly, the argument can be made here. But like I said, across the street, up right next to a multifamily building that is being renovated, you have a T680, and you have restricted commercial.
If you wanted to rezone the whole block, I could understand that. I might vote for it. But to rezone one sliver of property and everything else is different, it just doesn't make too much sense to me.
To the south, along the same block, though it's restricted commercial, it's also T50, though the height may be a little different. The O means it's going to be mixed use. And so the same kind of uses theoretically would be able to go into the T680. It would be the same.
Good evening, Cesar Garcia Pons, Deputy Planning Director. Spot zoning by definition isn't the amount of area. It's not one parcel is spot zoning or 7 parcels is spot zoning. One parcel is just the applicant is here for that one parcel. This is not the city doing the entire block. Spot zoning is more if it's not adjacent to other type of zoning. Think about an island within T3. So if somebody wanted to come in and do T6 in an island of T3, that would be a spot zoning, whether it's a block or a lot. In this particular case, this is one lot that is adjacent to T6, so it's not spot as an extension of T6. So somebody used spot zoning before, that is not the correct definition of spot zoning. Thank you.
No, I cannot? Okay.
It's the policy, unless a board member has a question for you. We can't allow people to keep coming up and speaking. Because the public hearing is, I closed it. Okay, okay, any other discussion, or do we have a motion?
Well, let me say, you can tell Mr. Rester you did a filet mignon job, and I usually support staff, but I know this neighborhood, and I know the threats it faces, and I have the history of being part of Miami 21, and I think this is not really an appropriate change in this instance. I would make a motion that we not approve this project.
I'll second it.
Okay, this is on item number 5. First, remember, they have to be separate votes.
Are we not commenting anymore, or we're going to vote? Okay.
Call, please.
Dr. Martin?
I'd like to have some, okay, go ahead.
Some discussion.
Yeah. Are we going to have discussion, or, well, we're voting? Okay, go ahead.
You made the motion. I said any more discussion, you made the motion. We cannot really continue. Once the motion is made, you're not supposed to go back for discussion.
Well, Madam Chair, but
No, I thought you had meant public
I
hearing.
want to understand the
vote yes.
motion.
You want to withdraw the motion? You want to withdraw the motion?
No, but we can make a motion for discussion. There could be a motion for discussion.
What are we voting? Are we voting on the land use change or on the zoning change? Because I think we've been talking about the two together.
On the land use change first.
Voting on the land use change first. You have to legally vote on the land use change.
Okay. But I think we were mixing the two, because if you look at the map for the land, I mean, we're talking when we were discussing and when we were asking questions, that's why I was a little confused, because he was still talking. I didn't know if he was done with his rebuttal.
Right.
But we normally...
Normally, let me just say one thing. Under the Roberts rules and so forth, when, I know what the board's practice is, but when you can treat it as a motion to approve or to deny for purposes of discussion. I mean, the chair can allow the discussion. It's not like it's, an absolute thing. You can allow some discussion after you move it. I know it's not the practice once you're voting.
So, Dr. Martin, you made a motion to deny. And this is item number 5. If you remember, when we have companion items, we always hear them at the same time, but we have to take separate votes.
I understand, but I was confused because I didn't know he was done with his rebuttal. And then usually what we do is we discuss.
Right. Well, I think in light of that explanation, if you want to allow discussion, Chair, the member was confused, you can allow a discussion if you wish.
That's fine. Just go ahead and vote.
Okay, I voted.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
No.
Ms. Levano Cruz?
No.
Mr. Caravaglia? No. Mr. Gibson?
No.
Ms. Gutierrez?
No.
Mr. Milian?
No on this one.
Mr. Pina?
The motion was,
To deny.
I just think that this area needs the realization, but I know what the neighbors are saying, so I'm caught in the middle, but yes.
Ms. Torrance?
Yes.
And Ms. Tarbert?
Yes.
Motion fails 5-6.
Okay. So
Then it passes.
so do we have to make an alternative motion to approve?
I think you should. We've always said that we'd like to just have one clear motion one way or the other sending your message.
Well, I'd make a motion just so we can open it up for discussion.
I second.
And your motion is to approve?
Yes.
Recommend, yes.
Well, but that's my motion, then somebody has to second it just so we can start discussing it.
I just seconded it.
Right. And then-
I just seconded it.
Right.
Moving it. Right.
All right, well, go ahead.
Yes, so this is my concern, and this is the reason why I voted no. If we're looking just at the land use map, and we're talking about spot zoning, I see this map as the total opposite. I see this application as correcting an error. I mean, it looks to me like what's out of place is the designation of medium-density multifamily residential, because everything around it is restricted commercial. And if you follow the line, you have red, 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 and then all of a sudden it goes down to this little light brown, and then it continues red, red, red. So to me, it seems that it makes sense to approve the land use designation to make it consistent with what's to the north, to the south, and to the west, I guess. So that's why I voted no, and that's why I made a motion now to approve, because I think that it makes more sense, and I would follow our professional staff's recommendation. They're the ones that reviewed this, and I would hope that they're applying the principles of Miami 21 when they're looking at this stuff. So that's why I made that motion, and those were the comments that I had and the questions that I wanted to, the concerns that I wanted to talk about.
Any other discussion before we proceed with the motion? Okay, she made a motion to approve item number 5. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Leavano Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Garavaglia?
Yes.
Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Dr. Martin?
No.
Mr. Milian?
Yes on 5 only, yes.
Mr. Pina?
This is for the land use?
To recommend approval for the land use.
Yes.
Ms. Torrance?
No.
Mr. Young?
Nope.
Ms. Tarbert?
No.
Motion passes 7-4 to recommend approval of the land use change.
All right, and now if I could hear a motion for item number 6.
Motion to approve PZAB 6.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Leavano Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Garavaglia?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Gutierrez?
No.
Dr. Martin?
No.
Mr. Milian?
No.
Mr. Pina?
This is for zoning, right?
For the zoning change.
No.
Ms. Torrance?
No.
Mr. Young?
Nope.
Ms. Tarbert?
No.
Motion fails 4-7.
So that does, you've recommended an approval of the land use category, but you're going to be recommending a denial because you didn't get the requisite amount of votes of the change of zoning. That's the board's vote.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Do they have to do another motion?
No, that failed. That failed. It didn't have the number of votes. There's no need to do another motion. That failed
Then why does the other one you have to?
because it was tight and because
That
it wasn't,
No, they have two more.
because it was a double negative. It's that same bullshit.
10 and
okay?
11.
You just need-
No, 10 and 11. Item number 10,
Oh, was they continued? Janice, eight?
Item 10, file ID 06-01242X, a resolution of the Miami Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board approving or denying an exception as listed in ordinance number 13114 as amended, the Miami 21 Code, the zoning ordinance of the City of Miami, Florida. Article 6, Section 6.3.2b, to allow vending carts within open space or partially open space for the purpose of displaying and selling other merchandise or food products allowed to be sold generally within the district for the property located at approximately 1050 Northwest 14th Street, Miami, Florida.
Good evening, board members. This is Derek Cook with the Planning and Zoning Department. As stated, this is an exception to allow vending carts at the address located at 1050 Northwest 14th Street. It's specifically to allow 12 vending carts within a new development to supplement the commercial uses that would take place there. I will allow the applicant to go into specifics of the development and where the carts will be located. The Planning and Zoning Department reviewed this and felt that the introduction of these vending carts would be appropriate for this area. We have two conditions with our approval associated with this application. One, that the Miami 21 Code Section 632 states that no warrant or exception shall be granted allowing existing uses to expand their retail activities or to display their merchandise into existing open or partially open spaces. Now, that's a kind of convoluted statement. To try to break it down, what that means is that the applicant has such as a Chili's at that location, and that Chili could not have a vending cart as well at that location, as an example, as that not extending that use. Also, our condition is that the design and such vending carts shall be subject to review and approval by the Planning and Zoning Department.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. Ben Fernandez, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, here on behalf of the applicant, which is a Swerdlow Group entity. With me this evening is Randy Foltz of the Swerdlow Group. This property is in the Health District. CIHD is the Transect zone. We're very happy to bring this project forward. This is just one aspect of the project. The project is entirely by right, is already under construction and permitted. We're simply here requesting an exception to allow the vending cart use in conjunction with the project. This is the first standalone retail development in the Health District. One of the things that Miami 21 promoted in the Health District was the ability to have restaurants and retail services that are typically ancillary to the health use to be separate from some of the monolithic buildings in the Health District. So it makes it a little bit more interesting, breaks up the monotony, and that's what we have here. This is on 14th Street, for those of you that are familiar with the Health District, just west of Bob Hope Drive, 10th Avenue. And it is one of the principal east to west